Hi there, guys. It's your host, Josh from Recovery Talks 24/7, and it's such a pleasure and an honor today because I've got an awesome guest with me, and her name's Kerris. And just before we kind of get on with this conversation and this podcast interview, I just want to let everybody know that we are sponsored by the amazing Money Wellness. Now, Money Wellness, what they do is they support you every step of the way if you are struggling with any form of debt whatsoever. Why are they sponsoring me? Well, I was in a massive amount of debt many, many years ago, and I buried my head in the sand for so long. And I managed to reach out to Money Wellness, and it's completely changed my life from the inside out. And it can do the same for you. So if it is something that you are struggling with, then please do get in contact with them. You can find them online as well if you just type in Money Wellness, and they'll be more than happy to help you and support you every step of the way. So this morning, guys, we've got an amazing guest. Her name's Kerri, as I explained before. And this lady I spoke to previously, I found her on TikTok. And I've been managing to find a few people on TikTok. And the reason why Kerris jumped out at me is just because of her story and what she went through herself. And it's going to be an interesting one because obviously we talk about recovery, and recovery comes in all different shapes, sizes and forms. It doesn't just have to be the addiction. It can be lots of different other things. And this is why I want to speak to Kerris because her story really touched my heart. And I know it's going to probably touch so many other people's heart that may be listening to this today. Or it may be encouraging somebody that may be listening to this that has gone through or is going through the same thing that Kerris went through as well. So without further ado, I don't want to do too much talking. So Kerris, how are you doing? You okay?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. I know it's been a long time. We've been managing to try and sort out dates for you to come on, and then we couldn't because there was life things that popped up. So it's such a pleasure and an honor to have you on today. And thank you so much for giving up your time to share a bit about your story. So really, Keris, what I want to know and what everyone else wants to know, let's kind of go back to the beginning because I know your story from off the camera. You've shared it with me. So can you kind of describe to me what life was like before everything sort of started to unravel, before the eating disorder and identity crisis kind of took hold?
Yeah, I was a very happy, bubbly kid. Because it all started quite early on. Um, and I loved school. School was a huge part for me. I loved going. I know not many people loved school, but for me, I absolutely loved it. If I weren't there, that's where I wanted to be. Um, I was always into the creative arts. That's how I'd express myself as a kid, and always very happy. It was I was always the kind of kid that would be happy to talk to, always up for an adventure, and I was very outgoing as a kid, so it was very good memories.
Yeah. So obviously, like with school, like you said, it's an odd thing to say because a lot of people go, oh, school, when you're older, you're like, oh, you like school. But that's such an amazing thing, and also being creative, like you said, we wanted to be in the creative mindset, which is really good as well. But I know when we spoke off camera, you went through, an eating disorder. Now, it has been something that I've noticed myself, even through not just looking on social media, but I've had a few people that I know that have suffered with, some form of eating disorder. And I kind of, from what I know, I'm not really clued up about it, but there is some sort there's different levels of it, isn't it? People really do go to the extreme, but it's over a course of, months, years, and people keep it, very secret as well. So when you was in school, did you kind of suffer through anything at school that kind of led you to go down that route of having an eating disorder?
Yeah, so I think school was I loved the concept of it, the learning part of it, finding out new things and being able to expand on my knowledge, and it was a very enjoyable experience. But I feel like bullying is it's big in schools. All schools have a no bullying policy. You'll never find a school that doesn't have that policy. But no matter how many policies they have that are against bullying, it's always there. And I experienced that a lot from the very beginning of school, from the beginning of what I can remember. I don't have any memories of school where I wasn't in a position where I was bullied from a young age all the way up until I left school. And I think that that had a huge impact because school was a safe space for me, and it kind of took away that enjoyment from it, and it became somewhere that I loved to go to, somewhere that I dreaded going.
Yeah. And I think the word bullying, it's like, from what I remember when I was young, it wasn't really sort of spoken about a lot, and but it has always been there, even from when I was young as well. I know it still goes on. And I've even noticed now, social media has a big thing, has a big impact on young people's lives as well, having to be a certain thing, act a certain way. And if you don't fit that criteria, you're kind of the odd one out. Um, and that's a real shame, because obviously you said that was a place for you to be, where you could be, you love being creative. That was a place where you'd wake up in the morning and go, you know what, I'm excited to go. So what kind of impact did that have on your self-worth and the way you saw yourself?
I mean, when you're a kid, it's all about, you create these belief systems and these beliefs about yourself, and you're always like, you think good about yourself, and then it kind of came to the bullying kind of changes that about you, because it makes you question what you believed about yourself, and it makes you think things that you didn't think about before. And it definitely changed my opinion of myself, because I felt as though I was out of place for being different, and it kind of made me feel like being different was a bad thing, when before I always felt like the fact that I was different was a good thing. And it kind of got taken away from me and completely switched around 180 degrees. And it completely changed my experience of school.
Mm,
And it's always been sad that somewhere that was originally such a safe place and that I enjoyed going to was kind of changed around.
yeah. And no, thanks for sharing that, because I know it's a topic that some people struggle to talk about, and there may be people listening to this kind of going, do you know what I mean? I'm going through that at the moment. How am I going to get through this? Like you said, it changes your identity, your self-worth. You start questioning yourself, which are things that you shouldn't have to, which is kind of moving on to now. When did you sort of start to feel like that you were losing your sense of identity, and how did the sort of anorexia kind of tie into that? Would you be able to explain that a little bit for us?
Um, I think we've been made to believe that I wasn't good enough. Who I was as a person didn't fit in, um, and it got made into a bad thing. And I feel like it kind of changes your mindset so much that I just decided that if I'm not good enough, then I need to fit in to be good enough. And so all these opinions that these other people had about me, that's where it kind of started to tie in. And in the beginning, I kind of tried to brush it off. But I feel like it's kind of not talked about enough about how much a person can take in terms of bullying, because for children, um, and when you get to secondary school as well, it's kind of brushed off, I think. It's not dealt with in the right way. And you kind of feel like it's not important. So you don't end up talking about it, because when you do talk about it, it's not dealt with. It doesn't get better. Um, and it's not made out to be as important as it should be. And so instead of talking about it, I decided to change myself in order to stop the bullying. And that's when it all kind of started. Um, I would change everything about myself, and that's kind of where the anorexia started as well.
Yeah. And I feel like when somebody hears that doesn't understand it, and this is coming from like a recovery perspective from my side of the story and other people's side of the stories maybe hearing this, this share that you're sharing today, that when people haven't gone through it, they don't understand it. And they normally just come around and just go, why is he doing that to himself? Why is she doing that to herself? Why are you starving yourself? Why I don't get it, and they have an opinion about it. So I really do believe, especially in that topic as well, anorexia is very, very misunderstood because people don't see the underlying of what's actually been going on in that person's life. So what would you say is what was the internal voice like for anorexia? What was it that was telling you? Because I'd love to know that myself, and I'm sure listeners would love to hear that. What was it you was hearing in yourself for you to go down that route?
So with anorexia, I feel like it's misunderstood a lot because it's not a set in stone criteria for how it starts. It's never the same for every person that has suffered or suffers with it. It's never the same story. There's always some similarities. But for me, it kind of, the self-worth was a huge part of it. I got left with barely any self-worth at all. And I felt like I had no control. All these people that were bullying me and tearing me down, I couldn't stop it. I had no control over it. And any time that I tried to reach out and get the school or meetings were called to stop it, nothing did. And I think as a child, that's like one of the worst things is having a situation happen to you that you have no control over. And I think in response to that, I took control of something that I knew I could, and that no one could take it away from me. And so, excuse me. And so I controlled food as a way in response to controlling externally what I couldn't.
That's powerful in itself because, like what you said, you couldn't control what everything was going on around you. From what you really wanted is you wanted something to be done about that situation. Because it wasn't and you couldn't control it, you took yourself away and knew that you can control what you was eating. And that's a thing that a lot of people all go through that are from all these sort of different walks of life, especially in, because we're going to call it out as it is, because obviously it must have been like an addiction. You must have had an addiction from it though, Keris, because obviously I'd love for you to kind of share about that, because there must have been some sort of like physical effect it was having on you. Like, how did it make you feel, even though you couldn't control what was going on around you? How did it make you feel when you took yourself out of that situation and said, you know what, fuck you, basically, I'm going to control it myself and I'm going to do something to myself that's going to make me feel better than what you thought it would? So would you be able to kind of explain to us, like, what was the side effects that you was feeling? What was you going through?
I think there was so much going on. I felt a lack of control of the situation. My views about myself had been completely torn down, and as much as it's quite a common misconception that anorexia is all about weight, sometimes it is a part of it, but people fail to realize sometimes that as much as it is a part of it, there are also deeper parts, underlying roots of it that aren't really often discussed. And so as much as I used it to control my weight and sort of feel better about myself, it was the control that I had from it. It was like an addiction in the sense that it was something that I always had control over. No one else, no matter how much they tried, it couldn't be taken away from me, and it was something that was mine. And eventually, once I realized that, the feeling of having that control and doing it over and over, the feeling of an accomplishment, so to speak, of as how far I could take it, it did become quite addictive.
Yeah. So this, you've gone from this childhood memory, from what you can remember, you enjoyed school. Things were going well at school. You had a specific subject that you really, really enjoyed. You've gone through now the bullying situation. You've tried to voice your opinion. You've tried to ask for help and just nothing's getting done. And then you've resulted into now, you know, going into the anorexia now. This must have really, how did your illness now impact your relationships with your family, friends, and even yourself? Were there moments of isolation or misunderstanding or unexpected support? Like, how did this impact you?
So I had friends at school, and I did have a strong relationship with my family. But with this, it takes up a huge amount of your time, and your whole mind space becomes all of it. It literally sucks you in, and it's all you think about. It goes from something that happens every now and then, and you think about it every now and then, to that's everything, and it becomes sort of like the whole part of you. And so at school, these friends that I had, it was never about the friendship anymore. It was, how can I hide it from them? If they find out, how can I sort of distract them from it or make up excuses? And it sort of came to the point where I didn't have time for friends anymore, because if we was hanging out, food was always involved somehow. It's the common thing. You go out and socialize with people, food is going to be around, and so to avoid it, I avoided them. And obviously, where my family's concerned, they were obviously going to be worried, and because they were concerned, they would try and help with it, but I mistook it as they were trying to take that control away from me, and it brought up from the bullying of, this is something else that they're going to take away from me. They're going to take this control away from me. So I sort of isolated myself from them as well. So I isolated myself from my friends and my family. And it felt like, although everyone was trying to be there for me, it felt like they were the enemy. And so the distance in our relationship just became bigger and bigger until I wouldn't speak to anybody. And that really hurt, because I was very, very close with my friends and my family. And then it was just gone.
Wow. And it's crazy when we think about it, and there's probably people at home that are like, that's crazy, how can you do that to yourself? But I think what we both know, any form of addiction, and like you said, you admitted it yourself, it came out of your own mouth, the addiction that you had for that, it takes you away from everyone, doesn't it? It puts you in your own mindset. And then what was quite powerful, what you said, is you start hating everyone else around you, because you're like, just get away from me. You don't understand. How many times I probably used to say, you don't get it. You don't understand, so go away. But I think what we both can agree on is, and people that may be listening to this, is we say they don't understand because we don't want to let them near, and we don't want to let them in, and we don't want to share what's actually going on, because we want to self-isolate. We want to keep it to ourselves, because we feel like if we're going to share what we're actually up to or what we're actually going through, we may feel that people around us aren't going to understand us. And yours is a prime example. You've gone through something, a scenario in your life that nobody has understood you, and it sounds like no one kind of believed you, because nothing got done about it. So people will be going, well, it makes sense, you just seclude yourself away from everyone. So this obviously the anorexia you've gone through, it really must have affected you physically. Did you have to go to hospital in any way? Did it get to the point where it was bad and it was like, I need to go and get seen by a doctor? You know, did you ever go to the hospital?
So it did get to that point, and I will always remember it because, you know, some people who haven't experienced it may not understand this, but because it takes such a physical toll on your body sometimes. And, you know, when you feel sick and you're ill, the one thing you want is to feel better, and you'll do anything to feel better. You take medicine, you go to the doctor, and you'll get the rest that you need so that you can feel better. And I remember being in and out of general hospital through secondary school. And there was this one specific time that I will never be able to forget. And I feel like I was so sucked in by it, I didn't realize how bad it had actually got. And I was sitting in my hospital bed, and I went to sleep as normal, and my mum was staying in the hospital with me. And I woke up the next morning in a completely different room with all these wires attached to me, and I was so confused. And I asked what had happened, and my heart rate had got so low while I was asleep that they didn't know if I was going to make it out. And I heard that, and as hurtful as it is for me to say, I didn't stop. And I think that's what's the most shocking part, is that it had me so far in its grip that I could have not been here anymore, and it still wasn't enough. And so at that point, I think everyone realized that being at home, receiving treatment at home and therapy and all these appointments just wasn't going to be enough. And if I was actually going to have any hope of coming out the other side of it, that I was going to have to go to a specialist hospital and stay there. And I did. And it was the most hardest experience of my life. And it's not something that I should have had to have experienced, really. I mean, I feel like for me, it's kind of I'm so used to it. Like, it's so normalized to me that I was in there that I forget sometimes that that's not how a kid should experience their teenage years. And I just remember saying goodbye to everyone, and it didn't truly hit me how far I'd gone until I'd got in those doors 3.5 hours away from home, and my family had to leave and say goodbye. It was time to go. And I was shown to my room, and I sat down on that bed. And then I realised I wasn't getting out of there anytime soon. I wasn't going to see my family for a long time. They could visit, but it was 3.5 hours away. I wasn't going to see them that often. And I think it was at that point that I was like, I've really gone that far. And you don't realise it until you have got to that point.
Wow. It's just, even you explaining it now, it just felt like I was just kind of watching like a reel, you know, like of you getting dropped off in that room. The feelings and the emotions that you already was feeling, but even more so, you're now sitting in a room by yourself and your parents have gone, you know, and your parents are, for anyone that's got parents, you know, it's your safe place, isn't it? Your parents, they love you, they cherish you, they adore you, but they don't know what else to do, and they've taken you to this place. But that must have been really hard for them as well, I'm sure.
Yeah, it
That
definitely
must
was.
have been really difficult for them. So when you went into this specialist place then, you know, and for anyone that's listening, this isn't easy to speak about, because, you know, we're going through Kerris's story, and it's, you know, it's quite difficult. So whoever's anybody listening to this, may this be something that you can kind of probably learn about this subject. And obviously as well, somebody may be listening to this and they're going down the same route as Kerris today and they don't know what to do. So hopefully this story will be, an encouragement and a boost for you to not go down that same route. So when you was in this specialist place, how long was you there for? Like, was it on and off? Was you in and out? What was the experience like for you in this specialist place?
I was in and out. It was a children's one, and I was there in and out from 14 all the way up until 16. And it was a constant cycle of I was in there and I'd push back because they were trying to take this control that I thought I had that I didn't have, and I thought they were trying to take it away from me. I didn't see the bigger picture of what they were trying to do. And then I'd get sick of it and I would go along with their plan and go along with the treatment, follow all these rules that they had and set in place, to a point where they would agree that I was okay to go home. And then I'd get home and then I was on my own. I didn't have all these constant watch and all these strict rules. And that's when it came back every time. And I would go back into that comfort safe space that I'd created. And then before I knew it, I was right back where I started and back in there again. And that was really something really, really hard that I had to go through, of that cycle of, I think I'm out of it, I'm back in it. I could never quite escape it just enough to be at a point where I was okay to be on my own.
And I'm guessing when you was going through, the system of trying to get help, and it sounds like as well that and it's something that I was very clever at, and other people that I've met that have got similar stories of addiction or they've come from any form of recovery. We're very good at manipulating people. We're very good at saying, do you know what, I'll go with your plan, yeah, just so I can get you off my back, so then I can go and do whatever I want again. Do you know what I mean? So what I would like to know, and I'm sure what other people would like to know, when was that moment that you sat back and went, "Do you know what, Kiris, enough's enough now"? When was that penny drop moment? When was that light bulb moment? When was that spiritual awakening moment? Whatever you may want to call it. When was that moment that Keris woke up and said, "Do you know what, I can't do this anymore"?
That would have been last year.
Wow.
And that sounds so recent, but I'll tell you now, it was the most biggest realization I've ever had in my entire life. It was like an epiphany. It was like magic, and it was so surreal. As I said, I was out of the children's hospital by the age of 16. And I think it had been going on at that point for like 5 years. So I knew how, as you said, how to manipulate people to get my own way and to get people off my back. And I managed to keep it like that for so many years instead of months that I'd previously done. I managed to keep it together for years and keep it hidden. But last year, it got to a point where it wasn't just about lying anymore. You could physically see the damage that it had done. And I got sent to an adult specialist hospital instead, this time. And it was in September. And they said to me, it'll only be about 6 weeks. And I pushed back so hard. And it was a different experience from children's. They try and make you take a lot more responsibility for your own recovery, which I wasn't used to. And I pushed back incredibly hard, and 6 weeks passed, and I was nowhere near getting out of there. And that got to me really badly. I felt like I was lied to. When in reality, what I'd done was I'd pushed them away. I hadn't worked with them. If I had, I probably would have been out in 6 weeks. And as time went on, it got closer and closer to Christmas. And at the beginning of December, I decorated my entire room with all these Christmas decorations. And I was sitting there, and I'd had a terrible, terrible day. And I was sitting there crying, and I just started to calm down, and I was looking around at all these Christmas decorations, and I had all these photos up of all my family and friends. And I thought, how long am I going to put myself through this? How many times am I going to come back to this point? And I was 21. I said, this is supposed to be the prime time of my life. This is supposed to be where I'm figuring out who I am, and I'm finding myself as a person. And all I've done is just identify myself with this illness and push everyone away. And it's getting closer and closer to Christmas, and I just reached a point where I was like, enough's enough. I cannot and I will not do this anymore. I'm going to get out this time. I'm going to not lie about following the treatment plan. I'm going to put my all into it. It's not about manipulation anymore. I want to put my effort into this treatment plan that they're giving, and I'm going to make it work.
Yeah. And that sounds like that moment was a light bulb moment. And there must be so many people out there that keep this going on for years and years and years. And obviously your turning point was, from what you said, it was coming to Christmas. And Christmas is a time of, family, presents, being around people, and that was sounds like that was your sort of turning point, and decorating your room and, making it a place of like, yeah, it's meant to be fun. And like you said, like it's meant to be a great time of the year, which is great, and that was your sort of moment of shifting in your brain. That's what it comes across to me, and I'm sure people at home are listening to this as well. So what I would love to know, and other people would love to know, is like, what sort of, I know you said that was your light bulb moment, and there may be somebody that's sitting there listening to it and going, yeah, but I've had many Christmases and I still ain't changing. Like, what? There must have been a sort of like a certain thing that you must have been doing. Like you said, did you have anything in place that kind of helped you get to that moment of just, you know what, I need to change? Or was it just literally, I can't do this no more?
I think that, when it comes up to Christmas, it does make you think of, as you said, spending time with your loved ones, and it's about a time of giving and, all these people around you that you care about. And Christmas had always been very, very special to me. It's always been my favourite time of the year, and I'm sure it's a lot of people's favourite time of the year. And there was only one other time that I'd spent Christmas in hospital. And it made me think back to when I was 15 years old, and I got sent back to that child's hospital the day before Christmas. Literally on Christmas Eve at 15, and I wasn't anywhere near my family. They couldn't come and visit me on Christmas. I spent that Christmas alone, and I thought back to that moment, and I think that's what really done it for me. because 15-year-old me alone at Christmas, and yeah, thinking back to that, it really, really hit me hard, I think.
Yeah, it's amazing. So let's kind of change the narrative of the story now. So you've kind of gone from the beginning, the middle, and now the end, right? And the beginning sounded really cute. You know, every person's got a story in it. We've all been a child. We've all had school. We've done these amazing things. And then, you know, this situation arose where you suffered with anorexia and eating disorder. Um, you know, and then it got worse, and then you was trying to get the help and everything, but you managed to have that moment where you just woke up, you know. With, you know, eating disorder or anorexia, some people talk about being cured from an eating disorder. Like, what's your take on that idea? Is that a thing, being cured?
I think it's a very common misconception of cured. I don't fully believe that you can be completely cured. The way that eating disorders mess with your brain, even when you go into recovery and you pass all these challenges along the way and you overcome things that you never thought that you could, you can go on to live a relatively normal life and you can look like just everybody else and no one would even know. But it's always going to be there, but it's not about completely erasing it. It's not possible. It's about having the power in yourself and the belief in yourself that these tiny little thoughts will come up every now and then, even if they're very far apart, of specific parts to do with food or how you feel about yourself. You know, you could look at a certain type of food and it could bring up something for you, or you could be in a situation where it brings up something for you, and it's not about erasing it, it's about having that power to prevent it from going any further than just a thought in your mind.
That's amazing. And it's great how you're looking at it like that, but also you come across like you're comfortable saying that, because there's a lot of people that go through, again, any form of addiction, and they feel uncomfortable to admit that, yeah, but I'm not cured though. I'm going to be stuck with this for the rest of your life. But let's be real and honest. You've put the work and the effort in now. You've accepted the fact that, yeah, there's always going to be them thoughts in the back of my mind, or there is going to be a scenario that might pop up in my life and it might be really difficult, but you've got the tools now of how to overcome that. And I think that's the message, that what you're saying today, what we're both saying today, is in regards to whatever you may be going through, if it is going to be anorexia, or if it is a drug addiction, or if it is, you know, being suffering with your mental health, is, yeah, we can't be cured by it, but we know how to work with it and we know how to live with it. And that's okay, because looking at yourself today, Kerris, and speaking to you previously before we came on here, yes, it sounds like doom and gloom what you've gone through, but you seem and come across like you're happy now. You're in a life that you're happy with. You're at a place now, which is what I want to move on to. You're at a place now where you're doing so much more for yourself. And I think what other people want to hear is what's been going on for you now. Like, what are you doing with your life now? What we'd love to hear anyway.
Well, 100%. I feel like that's what kept me from recovery for so long, and because I felt like I had to go from 0 to 100, and if I weren't at 100, I wasn't doing it right. And anytime that I didn't reach that 100% cured, what was the point? I'm always going to live with it, so what's the point? And that was something that I had to overcome myself. And once I overcame that and realized that recovery wasn't about erasing it or becoming completely cured, that's when I realized I was actually capable of recovery. Everyone is. And I had to stop thinking with the mindset of it's perfection or nothing. And since coming to that conclusion, recovery for me has certainly been a journey. It's not been the easiest one.
Yeah.
But it's definitely taught me a lot about who I am as a person without anorexia. And I've experienced life without constantly in the fear of being under its control, because in reality I was never in control. I thought I was, but it had control of me. And since having control of my life, I started uni. I'm learning psychology with counselling. It's going really well.
It's amazing.
But that's something that I never thought I'd be able to do. I'm in a happy relationship with the sweetest guy I've ever met, and he knows about everything, and he's so supportive, and we always work through everything together. I am hoping to, with my experience and the degree that I'm getting, to sort of change the mental health system and sort of improve it as someone who has been there on the other side. And I've just been taking time to really experience everything that I missed out on. And it's been great. I feel like the world has completely opened up to me. I felt like I've gone from, my world was just one small box. It was me and anorexia, and that was it. Nothing else existed. So I do feel like the whole entire world has opened up to me.
It's amazing. That puts a smile on my face because I love hearing that stuff. Like, you're doing a university, did you say a degree? Yeah.
Yeah.
You're doing a university degree in psychology and counseling. That is flipping amazing. And, you've got an amazing partner that's being supportive and understanding. That's also amazing. And it's just like a tick box, isn't it? It's like, yep, got the degree, got the partner. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, I know you said previously you want to get the house and all of them things, and
Yeah.
all them things come, and like what you said, I think a lot of people will massively relate of being in that box. I like how you explain that, being in that box with you and that illness, whatever that may be, anorexia, drug addiction, mental health, whatever it may be. And it's like just you and that person, that whatever it is. And it's daunting, but then you've pretty much opened that box going, no, anorexia, do one. I'm not accepting this anymore. And your life has just gone bam. And it's like, what I feel like is we're like this, we're covered, we can't see. We've got like the little gap in between here, but we've just pushed through it, and it's just the light's kind of shining through. And look what's happening, the light's shining in your life. And may it long continue for you, Kerri. It really, really, I really hope that it continues for you now for months, years to come. And I know it will, because you are putting that time and that effort into yourself. You're putting yourself first, and at the pinnacle of everything, that you always have to be on point with it. You're always going to have to work with it, and that's an amazing gift to have. And whoever's that may be listening with that, we have everything around us, we've got all these great things, but we know at the pinnacle of it all, we've always got to be on point. We've got to be on charge, you know what I mean? Because we're going to have days where it's going to be difficult. We're going to have days where we may have something pop in my mind, and we've just got to go, nah, do you know what? Do one, because I know who I am today. I know my self-worth today. And that's amazing, Kerri. And I really, really appreciate you sharing that today, because I know it's a really hard subject for a lot of people. It is a really, really difficult subject. And for you to be able to take us on that journey and to be so open and honest about it as well, it takes some courage, I'll tell you that. So for everyone that's listening, Kerri, who may be stuck in this form of an eating disorder, or maybe sitting in hospital, right now, like you, sitting in this room all by themselves, and they're just looking at four walls, and they may be listening to this and wondering if life will actually ever get better, what would you say to them from your heart? What message would you want to give to them today?
I would say that right now it may feel like that this illness that you have is all you have. It's all you've got, it's yours, and you may feel like you want to do everything you can to keep it and to keep everyone else away from it, and that this is all life is. But there is so much more to you, and you have every single right in the world to know who that is. And don't let whatever you've been through that has caused this to happen, don't let that stop you from being who you are and enjoying the experiences that life has to offer, because life is short. You don't get as many opportunities as we'd like to have. And, you know, I feel like life comes along with a lot of hurt, a lot of pain. Nothing in life is going to be 100% happy. But if you can feel that pain and enjoy the happiness that comes after it and get through it, I promise you it will be 100% worth it. Because right now it's like a tunnel, and it's a long journey through that tunnel, and there is a tiny little light at the end of it. But the more effort that you put in and the more work you put in, you will get closer and closer to that outside part. And once it opens up, I promise you life will never be the same. And it's not effort to get out of what the hole that you're in, but it's effort towards yourself as well, and you deserve that.
That's amazing, Kerri. And that definitely was from the heart. That was absolutely amazing. And if anybody wants to follow you, Kerri, on any form of social media platform, obviously I met yourself on TikTok because obviously I saw couple of your content videos and I was like, yes, I need to get her on. What is your TikTok username so people can give you a follow?
My recovery TikTok is K_M_TikTok, and then you've got K's Recovery Diaries as well.
Awesome.
So yeah, feel free to follow.
Awesome. So guys, you've heard that. If you are, wanting to give Kerri a follow, please do, definitely give her a follow. You will love her content. And it just shows all the positivity of life, of what's going on with her life right now. And I'm excited to see Kerri for yourself as well, with your degree. Definitely shout out to everybody, when you're on your social media, shout to the rooftops of what's going on for your life, because I think it's so important, not just for us to listen to, but also for you, to encourage you as well. So guys, that's it for today. But Kerri, thank you so much for coming on. I really, really appreciate it. I can't wait to get it out for people to listen to, because as I always say, if we can reach one person, Kerri, that's the main important thing, because your story is a blessing, and may it long continue, and may you carry on being a blessing to so many other people, and may you be a shining light to so many other young women's lives that may be going through this, and young men's lives as well. So thank you very much, Kerri. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Cheers.